I've finally been able to get my hands on one of these, the Raspberry Pi 500 Plus. I'm really excited to take a look at it and what it can do. But let me also explain to you why it reminds me so much of the very first computer I owned. Let's go and take a look right here on Jeff's Pi in the Sky. Hello once again, Pi geeks and techno nerds all over the world. My name's Jeff and I'm an IT professional who's been in the industry for over 30 years. I've been using Raspberry Pi since they first came out, and I wanted to share with you some of the things that I've done with them along the way. If you like what you see on this channel, please hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you want to see more, and hit that notification bell so you can be told when I put a new video out. If you really like what you see here, please use the hype functionality, so that will help promote the channel to other users who might be interested as well. And as always, let me know in the comments what you think about the Pi 500 Plus, where Raspberry Pis are going, and let me know if you also shared the same nostalgia as I did when I first saw it. And finally, if you've got any ideas for projects that you'd like to see me do in the future, put those in there as well. Now, before we start looking at any functionality, let's go and take the Pi 500 Plus out of its box for the first time. So here you can see my brand new Raspberry Pi still in its box. Let's push it out of its little sleeve here, and then open up the cardboard. And there is our new Raspberry Pi just sat there waiting to be used. So it looks like there isn't an awful amount in the box here. There's the Raspberry Pi itself, and if I just put that off to one side, there's then a little section up here at the back of the box, and that seems to have a little cable in it. Actually, I was wrong. It's the tools required to get into the Raspberry Pi, and also to remove those keycaps. And ultimately, that's all there is in the box. There's no power supply or anything like that, so please bear that in mind if you do order one. You'll have to get the power supply separately. Taking a look here at the rear of the Pi 500 Plus, you can see that there's a single USB 2 port, two USB 3 ports, an SD card slot, a USB Type-C port for power, the two normal micro HDMI ports. There's a covered slot here which can expose the GPIO pins, and a network port. And that really is it in terms of connectivity. There's nothing on the side or on the front at all. Taking the cover off is really straightforward. There are just a bunch of screws on the back of the case, and if you remove those, then you can separate the bottom of the case from the keyboard. Now, as you take it apart here, you do have to be super careful about this ribbon cable that connects the keyboard to the main board. There are then just two little screws here that keep this shield in place, so you can just remove those and then lift it away. And here you can see that the main board itself is not a conventional Raspberry Pi 5. It's a customized board, but it still has all of the exact same chips on it. The real big difference is over here, where you can see that they've included an NVMe SSD drive. Now, this is a 256GB model that I have here, but you can see here you could put in any NVMe drive you want up to full length. The only other thing that is of real significance in here is that it does come with 16GB of memory, and so it really is quite a well-specced machine. But now, let me get it all back together and then we can boot it up. Now the machine is booted, we can get everything configured. Now, this little bit here about Bluetooth keyboard and mouse is really important. Of course, the system here does have a beautiful mechanical keyboard on there, but there is no mouse or trackpad. So here I've had to use a wireless mouse and dongle. Everything about the configuration is completely standard here. I just need to put in the country settings, I'll need to provide my Wi-Fi details, all of that kind of normal Raspberry Pi stuff. So I'll come back when everything's configured. So here I'm at the Raspberry Pi OS desktop after getting everything configured and the system fully updated. Now the one thing that immediately jumped out to me is that this is still running the Raspberry Pi OS Bookworm version. Through that initial update, it hasn't updated to the new Raspberry Pi Trixie. Now for the purpose of everything I'm going to do here, that's absolutely fine. But it is a little bit surprising that it didn't automatically update. Running NeoFetch here shows up absolutely no surprises at all. We've got our normal 4 CPU cores and our 16 gigs of memory with 590 megs already used. Looking at a listing of block devices, again, it's no surprise to see that our NVMe drive is the only drive showing up. I don't have an SD card plugged into the Pi right now, and of course that would show up if I plugged one in. Running a quick speed test on the NVMe drive shows I'm getting reads of about 433 megabytes a second. This translates to about 3.46 gigabits per second, and so is pretty much exactly what I'd expect to see out of the Raspberry Pi's PCI Express slot. And generally speaking, if you had a perfectly normal Raspberry Pi 5 16GB model, it would look and behave pretty much identically to this. So I don't think there's a whole lot of point going into lots and lots of benchmarks here, as functionally it's really nothing new. But of course, what is new is that keyboard. So let's go and take a look at that. Now there is plenty to like about this keyboard. It's a good little size, it feels pretty good under the fingers, and it certainly makes good sound. As you can see just up here on the power key, there is RGB underneath each key. In order to be able to configure the RGB, you need to install a special tool, and you can do that with this command here, sudo apt install rpi-keyboard-config. This is a CLI tool that allows you to set various different effects on your keyboard. And you can also cycle through the effects by holding down the function key and then pressing F4. So that's pretty cool. Now the biggest issue I've had personally with the Pi 500 Plus keyboard is really nothing to do with its construction. It feels solid enough, and it has got a pretty well-made feel to it. The RGB is kind of fun, but the lack of a GUI tool to really let you configure an RGB layout that really fits what you want to do, I feel is a little bit limiting. Now equally, I found that the space between each key on the keyboard is more than what I'd normally expect on a regular keyboard. I've actually found it quite difficult to adjust my typing style in order to be able to type quickly on the keyboard. I'm sure I will get used to it, but it's just going to take time. My other complaint about it is that the keycaps are actually very flat on their surface. There's no texture here at all, it's just very smooth. I'm more a fan of having a little bit of texture on the top of keyboard keycaps, but I guess that's just a personal preference. But overall, I'd say that this keyboard really translates as being a fairly medium quality keyboard. I've definitely used better, and I've definitely used way worse. But now, let me tell you more about that nostalgia hit that the Raspberry Pi 500 Plus gave me. Way back in 1983, my first computer was one of these. It's a BBC Micro. Now, this was originally released in 1982. My parents got mine for me in 1983, and it was a wonderful thing to work on. It had a phenomenal version of BASIC installed on it, some really fun games, but there were also an awful lot of connectivity options on it. And this is what really got my mind going when it came to what I could actually do with computers. So all of my initial programming and experimenting controlling hardware really goes back to those old days. Now the BBC Micro is called the BBC Micro because it was part of a government initiative to help promote computer literacy within the UK. So BBC microcomputers were labelled with this BBC badge from the British Broadcasting Corporation, and many schools across the country were able to get hold of these computers, and then the kids attending those schools got their first introduction to computing through the BBC Micro. Now, the biggest problem with it for home users was that it was relatively expensive. It retailed for £399. And at the time, if you look at competing computers like the Sinclair ZX Spectrum or the Commodore 64, they both retailed for way less. And so the BBC Micro actually found it quite difficult to get into the home market. To counter this, they brought out a cut-down version called the Acorn Electron. And as you can see here, it bears more than a striking similarity to the Raspberry Pi 500 Plus. And when you consider the purpose of these Acorn products to experiment with computing and provide easy access into things like basic programming, there are an awful lot of parallels there. Now, since the Acorn Electron was more pitched as a direct competitor to the ZX Spectrum and the Commodore 64 in terms of pricing, Acorn had to scrimp a bit when it came to the hardware used within the box. The most limiting part of this was that they only had a 4-bit memory access bus. So if you wanted to access any area in memory, it actually took 2 clock cycles to access it. And this made the Electron relatively slow. So I was really happy to actually have my BBC Micro where everything ran a lot quicker. Now, the BBC Micro subsequently evolved, with the BBC Master System being brought out, which effectively just had more memory and a few more facilities within it. But the next big upgrade was this, the Acorn Archimedes, way back in 1987. Now, this was a true 32-bit RISC computer. It was an absolute revolution. And this was more like a competitor to the Atari ST or the Commodore Amiga 16-bit systems, or even 32-bit PCs that were starting to appear at the time. Now, the really interesting thing here was that the processor was again made by Acorn. And it was the Acorn RISC Machine processor. And in terms of this machine that you can see here, it was running an Acorn RISC Machine 2 processor. Now, if you think about Acorn RISC Machine, and you look at the acronym that then generates, ARM. This is actually the great-great-granddaddy of all of the ARM CPUs that we know and love today. And that includes the processor that we find in our Raspberry Pi 500 Plus. And this is why I had that enormous nostalgia hit when I first picked up the Raspberry Pi 500 Plus. Visually, it reminded me so much of the Acorn Electron. But architecturally, it's then built on from all of those old Acorn machines. And of course, all of those chips have then evolved over time to form what we use now in so many different devices. But nostalgia aside, what do I actually think about the Raspberry Pi 500 Plus? Well, I'm actually a bit conflicted about it. On one hand, it's a beautiful little all-in-one device. And I can well understand the appeal of getting one maybe for kids to use as their own introduction into the world of computing. Or if anybody wants a very lightweight desktop machine that they can just plug straight into a monitor and get going. The Raspberry Pi 5 is certainly quite a capable little machine. You can't do high-end things on it, but if all you're interested in is basic productivity like writing documents, spreadsheets, presentations, or that sort of thing, browsing the web, reading email, chatting to people, all of that is more than doable on this hardware. The fact that it has a built-in NVMe drive is also fantastic. Although I do wish they'd actually put this on the underside of the board and then allowed a little hatch to be opened up on the bottom to provide access. I think that would have been a whole lot better and easier than having to take the whole computer apart, especially given that ribbon cable that's really fragile at connecting the keyboard to the base case. It just means that swapping out or upgrading that NVMe drive or using the NVMe slot for some other purpose is made all the more difficult. The quality of the keyboard is okay, but it's not great. And that then brings me to the biggest problem that I think the computer suffers with. This is a £179 piece of kit, and I can't help but think if you picked up a Raspberry Pi 5 and then a separate mechanical keyboard for it, you could probably end up with a better quality result. That said, by the time you spent out on an NVMe adapter and an NVMe drive, I guess maybe the value doesn't look too bad. But it's certainly borderline. The other big thing is that they need to spend more time and effort on the configuration tools for the Pi 500 Plus, especially around the configuration of that LED keyboard. Although one nice touch is the fact that they have embedded a Flabby Birds type game into the keyboard that you can play without a screen. It actually uses the LEDs on the keyboard itself. Now, one other slight hiccup with that is that you need to do a firmware update to the keyboard before you can actually play that. In order to do that, you need to install the keyboard firmware update utility with sudo apt install rpi-keyboard-fw-update. After that, you can just run sudo rpi-keyboard-fw-update, and that will then go off and update the firmware. After that, you can run the Flabby Birds game with rpi-keyboard-config -game. So before you can play, you have to unlock the keyboard. As you can see, it's highlighted the escape key and the enter key both in red for now. And as per the instructions, if I hold both of those down until the unlock counter reaches 0, then the keyboard is unlocked. And if I hit the spacebar, I can start the game, and you can see I've got my little Flappy Bird equivalent on the left hand side, and as long as I keep on tapping space, then I can make him flap to get between the walls. It's a very nice touch for an RGB keyboard to have this kind of thing built into it. But in conclusion, I'm really not bowled over by the Pi 500 Plus. I think the Pi 400 was a really remarkable piece of technology where they did provide a reasonably low-end keyboard alongside a Raspberry Pi 4, but sold it at a really good price. This is priced really as a fairly premium product, and maybe I'll get used to it more. But right now, I can't help but feeling if they'd gone with a better quality keyboard and sold it at an even higher price, or gone the other way and had a lower quality keyboard at a cheaper price, I think either would have worked better. But that's it for this video. Once again, if you like what you see here, please hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you want to see more, and hit that notification bell so you can be told when I put a new video out. If you can see it in your heart to hype the channel, that would be amazing. I'm trying to get to 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so any help that you can provide by interacting with the channel or using hype, it would be very, very much appreciated. Let me know in the comments what you think of the Pi 500 Plus. And can you see yourself buying one in the future? Or do you have one already? Let everyone in the community know what you think. And of course, if you've got any other ideas for projects that you'd like to see me do in the future, put those there in the comments as well. Thanks so much for watching till the end, and until next time, bye for now.